Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hello and welcome to today's session on the 5 steps to US study. My name is Aman Bashir, and I have another panelist with me today, Ms. Sumaya Tariq. If Ms. Sumaya, you can take over from here. You need to unmute your mic.
Thank you so much, Aman, for calling me today. A little introduction about myself before I actually start the session. My name is Sumaya Tariq, and I'm an education advisor and a cultural affairs assistant at the US Department of State. The department I am a part of is PAS, or Public Affairs section. I'll tell more about it just shortly. Moving forward to what the session is essentially about. Basically, the session is the 5 steps of getting into a US university. We help you with the application process. The US has become a magnet for higher education all over the world since in the recent years. And for that reason, Education USA helps you in getting into that application process. What exactly is Education USA? Education USA is a network of advisors. It exists around in 170 countries, and we have 3 advising centers in Pakistan. This network is supported by the US State Department. The State Department, or the US Department of State, is similar to a foreign ministry, which you see in other countries. It helps carry out the international or foreign policy of the United States. The department I'm in, public affairs, carries out public diplomacy. What we mean by public diplomacy is people to people ties, or simply American people and Pakistani people telling each other their stories. And one of the tools to tell each other's stories and share experiences is through education. And that is exactly essentially what EducationUSA is doing. So we are the part of State Department, and we provide you with current and accurate and very comprehensive information in the US higher education. And also we offer you resources and guidance on the best fit university, because we believe that in the US there is no best university per se, but a university which matches your personality, your background and interest is the best fit university and the right one for you. Aman, if you could please move forward. We can start off with the range of services we offer. I'm going to go anti-clockwise. First of all, we offer in-house sessions, which essentially are, right now they're online, but we also have a facility here. The sessions include calling universities from the US on information sessions on how to get into their university, what the financial aid package is. We also offer visa sessions and other similar academic sessions in our in-house sessions. We also have a very group of fine advisors. Aman himself is one, who are graduates from the US universities who cater to your personal and very specific needs of advising. So once you have attended one of our generic sessions, you can also get connected to one of the advisors, and the advisor can help you step by step in your US application process. Then the third one is mock tests, essentially for TOEFL and GRE. We offer simulations, or basically the exact environment, or not the exact environment, but the closest to the exact environment you're going to have in the actual exam. So we offer that as well. So we have prometric testing facility, and then we have a very resourceful library. There you can find books on GRE, SAT, standardized tests, even on college essay writing, and recently we've also added fiction books there. And the fifth service we have is workshops on standardized tests, which are a big part of the application process. We offer our very bright Fulbright students generally come in to give, our advisors, they come in to give an information and tips and tricks on how to pass the test and how to ace these tests with stellar marks on GRE, TOEFL and SATs. So these are the general services we offer. Moving forward, one must ask, why would you want to study in the US? And there are a lot of factors, but these are a few of them. The first one being the recognition. US universities enjoy the status of being recognized globally. It is a very financially and professionally sound uh, um, sound decision to make to get into a US institute, because generally that degree is recognized everywhere. So the recognition is one, and then there are over 4,000 accredited universities. So there's a lot of universities you can choose from. Secondly, the quality of institutions. US universities have generally enjoyed having top-notch universities, one of the topmost universities in the whole world. Most of them reside in the US, and the quality, the research resources, the research centers are very um, high in value. The faculty is very diverse. So overall, the standard is very high in US universities, and it's unmatched. The third one is diversity. The US also has one of the highest number of international students uh, in the world, and every year, I believe in the past 3 or 4 years, we have had more than 1 million students every year come and have study in our universities. So whether it's any color or any differently abled or any ethnicity or any religion, you will find students of all these categories, and it will help you blend in better. Then there is flexibility. Flexibility actually is a very big hallmark of US education, because essentially US education does not box a student. To explain it, basically Aman himself is a very good example for that, that he studied, I believe, economics from Penn State, and he's also taken in the first 2 years of bachelor's, he has also taken comparative religions. Another one of my friends has also taken, while she was studying project management, she has taken drumming. So, and even before, at the bachelor's level, even when you have taken the admission, you can audit for the first 2 years what you want to do, and then you can choose your major later on. So that is a very good ability of US universities. Then the student life. By student life, we basically mean how your social life progresses, a student's social life progresses on the campus. And the US does not like students who are only book smart. The students enjoy a campus life with a lot of um, um, clubs and societies and fraternities, sororities. I was discussing just a while back that mostly a lot of institutes in the US have a Pakistani student association. So you, at once, you feel at home, and socially, the social life is really good and colorful. And finally, a very important aspect for most of us students in Pakistan is funding. Now, there are two types of universities in the US, public and private. And similar to all public or government universities, public is low tuition, but private has a very high tuition cost. But the good thing is that their private universities generally offer very generous packages, whether it's on merit-based packages like TA-ships, RA-ships, your research assistant, teacher's assistant, things like that, or even need-based financial packages where you tell your need and your financial status, and they give you an aid similar to that, and even loans. So the funding generally shows that the US is a very value for money kind of a decision to make in order to choose a university. Moving forward, we will, Aman, yeah. So moving forward, the 5 steps to US study. These are the 5 steps, and Aman will get into the details. I'm just going to call them out. First of all, you start off with researching your options. You start this at least 1.5, 2 years before the application. Then you finance your studies. Then you complete your application, which includes a lot of tests and procedures. Then you apply for visa, and then finally you prepare for departure. So Aman, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maya, for that. I'm going to be going into detail regarding the 5 steps to US study now. Number one being researching your options. The good thing about in the earlier slide, we talked about the flexibility. Now, the good thing about US degree is that you don't have to go decided that what do you want to study, whether you want to study engineering or economics like me, or maybe particle physics, or some form of an art subject. You can go undecided. That's the term that is used in the US. You can go undecided, and essentially what happens is that for the first 2 years, you're free to take any class that you want. You can take health and physical sciences classes, or sciences, or math classes. You can take anything that you want, anything that is being offered by the university. And then eventually, if something piques your interest, what you can do is eventually, at the end of the second year, which would be your fourth semester, you can go into your university portal and then let them know that this is the major that I intend to major in. So the type of academic and degree programs it would be the first part in doing your research. The choice of US academic institution, whether you want to go to a private institute or a public institute, maybe a community college. This is also something that you need to be looking into as far as researching your options is concerned. Choice of location is something most Pakistanis actually do ask this question. For example, if you have somebody who lives in New York and you would like to stay over at their house, maybe an uncle or a friend or a close family member, first cousins, anybody. What happens is that if you live close to somebody or in their house, you can save a lot of money as far as boarding and lodging is concerned. That's also a very significant part of the amount of money that a person ends up spending in the US. On average, I would say you probably end up saving in the ballpark figure of about $10,000 a year if you do live with somebody in a house, at a friend or family member's house. So location is something that always comes up. And then campus life depends whether you are used to a large campus or a small campus. A lot of public schools in Pakistan have a lot of students, but then compare that with a private school, they might not have as many students in a single class. So the student to teacher ratio is something that also should be considered. Usually 1 to 16 is something that is considered a good ratio, or even 1 to 12 or 1 to 10, meaning 10 students to one teacher. This would ensure that each student gets good face time with a professor during class or after class homework. So the second part in the researching your options is the type of institution, as I mentioned earlier. So a 2-year community college, and then there's 4-year private institutions, and then there's the 4-year public institution. Now, I want to point out that a community college only has the first 2 years of schooling in college. Once you're done with the first 2 years of schooling, you would have to go to a private institution to get your 4-year bachelor's degree, because that's where it ends, and it's called an associate's degree, which you were given at the end of the 2 years at a community college. For Pakistani students, what we usually say is that there is a 2+2 program, essentially guaranteeing that once you're done with the 2 years of community college, you will automatically progress as long as you meet the minimum requirements of the 2+2 program, that you will automatically be transferred into the private institution. Now, the difference between a private institution and a public institution is primarily that a private institute is expensive, but they have a lot of funding to give, versus a public institution which is cheaper. And we'll talk about the numbers as well as to how a public institute is cheaper and is cheaper, and then a public institute is more expensive. And the public institution does not have as many scholarships to give out. They do give out very, very few to international students. I want to emphasize that this is specifically for Pakistani students, of course, because since we're considered international students, not that much funding is available for students wanting to go to a public institution, which is why we usually tell students that if you need a significant amount of funding, you need to apply to a private institution. So the second thing that we need to figure out is the financing your studies part. Where's the money going to come from? Because we're talking about thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that we have to spend in 4 years on a student's education. So first of all, there's an entire Excel sheet that I usually share with my students during a one-on-one session, and as to how to actually shortlist universities, because there's over 4,500 universities, accredited institutions in the US. We can't apply to all of them. We have to figure out a way, a methodology that we want to apply to say 8 or 10 universities or even 6. So that's something that we can talk in more detail about once you come in for a one-on-one or talk to me, not come in, but rather email me for a one-on-one, and then we can have a session over Skype or perhaps even Zoom. So cost of attendance is something that I always tell students that they do need to consider. You need to know that what is the amount of money that your parents or you or a family member can spend on you in a particular year. One thing that students tend to say is that, oh, we'll pay 30% or 50%. But that's not actually how it works, because as we go forward, we'll understand the averages that I'll show you regarding costing. A university can range from anywhere from annually $30,000 to even $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. Total expenses, this is including living and lodging and books and insurance, because there's a lot of things that money has to be spent on. So in order to figure this value out, that how much you can actually afford to spend, you need to ask your parents or whoever is the primary funder that what exact amount of money can they afford to spend on your education, be it Pak rupees or US dollars. Once you have that amount, you'll know that, okay, so the university is going to cost $50,000. So in case I get in, then I would have to pay $30,000. That I need to ask for $30,000 because $20,000 your parents are willing to spend, and then the $30,000 is the balance. Compare that versus another university that costs about $70,000. Then you would have to spend you're spending the same amount because that remains constant, $20,000. But for the $70,000 university, you're asking for $50,000. So the percentages have changed, but the amount of money that you're willing to spend remains the same, because that's something constant, because your income, usually person's income wouldn't remain constant. The force majeure, of course. So funding sources, you need to figure out where you would be, the money is going to be coming from, whether you have any sponsors, as I mentioned, friends, family members, aunt, uncle, maybe your grandparents. That's something very common in Pakistan. They would essentially write a letter in your name to the university stating that I, XYZ, am willing to sponsor XYZ. And here is the balance sheet that I can afford to spend, etc., etc. Making a budget, of course, is something that's also extremely important. When you're in the US, money does flow extremely fast because you see a lot of nice things and you want to have food. So making a budget is very important. Applying for financial aid, of course, is the primary thing that all Pakistani students do. There's this thing, if you're an American citizen, you can apply also for federal aid, which is the FAFSA form. But if you're not an American student and a Pakistan international student, a Pakistani student who's not an American citizen, what you need to do is you need to apply through the College Board website. You need to apply using the CSS profile. That's where all your parents' financial information is going to go in. It's a very, very, very detailed form, and they ask a lot of questions. Some universities, there's a generic form, and then there's also separate supplementary questions, and they go into a lot of detail regarding anything and everything about your house, as to how much money you spent last year on vacation, what's your expected income, how much money do you spend on clothes, and there's a lot of stuff that they ask for during the entire form. And then there's different forms of aids available in the US. There's need-based, and then there's merit-based, and there's need-blind. Need-based aid is usually comes through the financial aid form, the CSS form. You would essentially asking for aid using that form. And then if the committee decides that this is something that you are a deserving student and you cannot reach the gap, then they will offer you a certain amount of financial aid. Then merit-based aid would be, say, for example, a university says that if a student has 1400 SAT score or above, you automatically qualify for, as an example, $10,000 discount. So that would be a merit-based aid. Or, for example, once you're inside, once you're studying at the university, for example, my university, I went to Penn State for my undergrad. If a student got 4.0 GPA, they would get a $4.5 or either $4,000 or $4,500 rebate on their education. And then there's need blind. So essentially what happens is that when a student is applying to a university, make sure that you know the exact amount that you're going to be, your parents can afford to spend, because the CSS profile, they ask this very specific question, that what is going to be your personal contribution. So that dollar amount is very important. The percentages don't really matter. It's about the exact dollar amount. And of course, the more amount of aid that you ask for, the more competitive your application will automatically become. Compare that versus a need-blind school. A need-blind school would be, they do not look at the fact whether you need aid or not, and whether you've asked for $5,000 or $50,000, they will ensure that if they want you in the university to be a student at their university, they will make sure that the difference is met. Moving on, these are the average costs that we have. Community college, of course, a lot cheaper versus even a public institute or a private institute. So essentially, if you want to go for a community college, we would recommend that you go for the 2+2 program and not just apply to the community college program. And as you can see, that I can understand a lot of people would be saying that it makes sense just to only go for a 2-year community college program and then think about which school to transfer to. But that would actually make your life extremely difficult being an international student and a Pakistani. So the 2+2 program is the way to go. So for your public institution, and these are average prices. Please bear with me when I say this. These are average prices, and of course these prices change each year. Even though a private institution is saying that it's $32,000, this is just the tuition cost. This is not living expenses. So add another $10,000 average. So and the public institution, this is also average $23,890 just for the tuition annually. The price difference is, of course, significant, but bear this in mind that you would have to pay all of the public institutions fee structure versus a private institution, which you could potentially get some form of financial or merit-based. Moving on, the third step is completing your application. This is a generic sort of a timeline that we usually give students. That if, say, for example, you want to go in August, then you need to start applying like at least 14 months or like a year and a half before you want to depart for the US. So right about now would be a great time if you are thinking of, if you're in say 12th grade or like A2, this would be the correct time to start thinking about researching your different options and etc. So 10 to 12 months prior to departure, start researching your option, which was step 1, which I earlier explained. And then 9 to 12 months prior to departure, you would start applying to the program. And then obviously the application process is not as simple as one thinks. We use obviously the CSS profile, which is extremely lengthy. And then we also have the common app where you have to write an essay, as well as fill out the entire application where you will with everything regarding you, the past 2 to 4 years will go into the application. And then 6 to 9 months prior to departure, which would be around, depending on what kind of admission that you applied for, whether it was early action or early decision or regular decision, you would start applying to different applications. These are also some generic deadlines. Each university, bear in mind that there's over 4,500 universities in the US. So each university is very different. But a generalization that one can make is that around November is the early decision deadline, either November 1st or November 15th. And then usually you get to know when, whether you've been accepted or rejected or waitlisted for early decision is by mid-December, I would say. Okay, so let's start from top. Regular decision, November 30th to Feb 1st. On average, I would say January 1st, December 31st is the deadline for most regular decisions. Notification is definitely starts around March, goes all the way up to April 30th, because May 1st is National College Decision Day, is by when you have to let the college know whether you will be accepting or declining their offer which they have made. So early decision and early action, November 1st to December 1st. What's the difference between these? The decision is that, the difference between the two is that early action is not binding unless it specifies it, but early decision is definitely binding. And you can only have one university in your early decision, but you can have multiple early action universities. Um, Usually, if you require a lot of aid or any form of any aid actually, unless you don't need to pay any amount of money, unless you can afford 100% of the university, we do recommend every student that they need to apply for early decision. Maybe not early action, but definitely early decision. That's something that I've emphasized to students in our center in Lahore again and again. Early decision is extremely important because 40 to 60% of all funding, whether it's merit-based or financial aid, is used up in the early decision process, essentially by um, November 15th or by mid-December, 40, 50, 60% of the budget is gone. And fewer people also apply in early decision, bear that in mind. For example, if your random example, there's a university, I think in early decision about 600 people applied, versus in regular decision, 10,000 people applied. So that statistically speaking, you have a better chance of getting into a university, getting accepted by a university, and getting aid. You have a higher chance in early decision than regular decision, because you are only competing with, say, 600 students versus 1,000 students. And please bear in mind, this is just an example that I'm giving you. Early decision values of as to how many students have actually applied varies from university to university. This was just one example that I gave you on the top of my head. So early decision, you can only apply to one university, and we highly recommend that you do. Early action, you can apply to multiple universities. It's not binding. Early decision is binding. So, for example, if a university has accepted you and they say that, okay, this is the package that you asked for, and we're willing to give you what you asked for, you would have to accept it because it's binding, and you can't apply to any more universities after that. But the good news is that you're done. You don't have to worry about anything else after December 15th, and you can start studying for your final exams. Early action is different. You can apply to multiple early action universities, unless it actually specifies that you can only apply to that one particular early action university. Then that's a different case, but on average, you can apply to multiple early action universities. And I do highly encourage you or anybody to actually do definitely go for early decision and early action. And then if there's anything left, then go into the regular decision cycle of a particular university. Right, and then the decision notification is by between December 1 and February 15th. On average, I've noticed that for early decisions do come by mid-December on average. Okay, so I've mentioned earlier the different aspects of the student application process. Common application is one of them, and then of course the SAT. To understand whether a student has the capability or the understanding of math and English, because English will be the primary method through which education will be provided to you in the US. They want to ensure that you're up to par and that you can sit in the classroom and understand the lectures. So obviously there's different aspects to the SAT. They need to understand, university has to understand at what grade are you studying and reading at. And then we have the common application. As I mentioned earlier, common application has different questions that they'll be asking you. You can apply it using the common application. Essentially what they've done is, when I was in college, I had to apply separately to each different university. And it was very cumbersome and tiring because each university has a different essay that I had to write. And this is back in 2006, because I went to college in 2007. So the common application is something that's great right now. There's also another application called the Coalition app. You're also free to and welcome to use that as well. The Common App has a lot of universities under one roof, so that's something that we always encourage students to do. And you can also do the Coalition app as well. So all the universities, of course, they have decided that, okay, these are the 7 topics that we're willing to accept. One of the topics is that you can write on anything and everything that you want. And of course, there's a word limit. But the Common App is you're going to have to upload your grades. Your teachers are going to upload their recommendations. You're going to have your college essay that you need to write. If you are planning on going to the US in 2021 fall, which is September, I would recommend that you start working on this now. and especially your essay, try to go to your school counselors and ask them for guidance. You can also view different uh, workshops that we have, and we've had a few essay writing workshops as well in the past online. Hassan Nisar, one of my colleagues, actually conducted one, I believe, a few weeks ago. I think maybe it was last week or the week before. And if you missed it, you just go on our Facebook page, on YouTube, sorry, on our Facebook page, Education USA Facebook page. You can see the essay writing workshop over there that Hassan Nisar conducted. So moving on, there's another test that you can also take, which is the ACT. A lot of students ask us this question, whether we should take the ACT or the SAT. My job as an advisor is to let you know that obviously how you're going to apply to the US, but in good faith, we also have to let you know that if you go for the ACT, the issue that you're going to have is that no Pakistani university is going to be accepting it, not up until now. Not up until now. So the SAT is something that would be accepted in a US university as well as different universities inside Pakistan as well. So essentially you're killing two birds with one stone, because not only can you use the SAT score to apply to a different university in the US, and two different universities in the US, but you can also use that same score to apply to different schools in Pakistan as well. So bear that in mind. One of the primary differences between the SAT and the ACT is that they have a science section. If this is something that you're interested in, usually we only recommend that you take the ACT if you have absolutely no plans of staying in Pakistan. That being said, maybe you're an American citizen or some other citizen, then you obviously ACT. Even as a Pakistani citizen, you're free to take the ACT. But given that we always recommend students have a plan B, which is to apply to a Pakistani university, please do take the SAT. Moving forward, the fourth step is once you get accepted to a university, how are you going to get there? You need a visa for that, right? So I'm going to let Sumaya talk more about on this, because she is part of the consulate. So Sumaya, if you could take over.
Thank you, Aman.
Yeah.
So basically Aman led you through the hefty application process, and this kind of culminates the application process. So once essentially when you get into your best fit university, you ask your university for a form called an I-20, which essentially is when you get that form from your accepted university, admitted university, you can apply for a visa. So essentially, I believe you cannot apply for a visa more than 120 days ahead of time, ahead of your session, your classes. But generally, how we can help you from the consulate in applying for a visa is that we have sessions with the consular officer, with the visa officer, who can tell you about the application process, who can tell you about what to expect in the interview. Some resources which I'd like to share is, one of them is mentioned on the slide, pk.usembassy.gov. You can go there, or another website we call TGS, it's travel.state.gov. I repeat, it's travel.state.gov. These two are your go-to resources for all authentic and updated visa information. You can you can even ask for queries. There is a query form there at TGS. We at the USEFP, we have had countless visa sessions. I believe every 3 months or 4 months, we've had a consular officer come in and acquaint you with the visa process. So I think mostly it has to do with the nerves of the interview, and we give you really nice, good tips and tricks in how to go through that process. We recently also had a Facebook Visa Live somewhere around 3 months back. You can also go to the US Consulate General Lahore's page, and there it's I believe an hour-long session. We had it open for the audience, and we answered most of the questions, the most common questions related to visa. So first worry about getting into the institution, and then let us take care through our visa sessions about how to apply for a visa. And that's it. I believe the next step after that is, if we move forward, Aman, is the pre-departure orientation, the culture shocks and reverse culture shocks and whatnot, traveling arrangements. I think you can tell better about these things, Aman. Over to you.
Yeah, of course. I just want to make sure I'm on. Okay, good. Okay, so the last step is going to be the pre-departure orientation, the PDO. Okay, so I just want to clarify. I see a few questions here that I was speaking a bit too fast, that my pace is too fast. I apologize for that. I couldn't actually read them because I was going through the presentation, so I apologize. If there's any clarifications that you guys need, you can always view the video again on our Facebook page, or you can email me, and once the presentation ends at the end, I'll be giving you guys my email address as well. Going forward, number 5 is going to be preparing for your departure. Essentially, this is a gathering that we host usually in a hotel in 3 cities that we have our offices in, Lahore, Karachi, and Islamabad. I believe this year, we unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situation, we won't be hosting one because of social distancing. But
I'm sorry.
doing something, that's fine, we might consider doing something virtually. But the purpose of a PDO, the pre-departure orientation, is that we want to make sure that each student is equipped to go to the US, and making sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. We invite hundreds of students each year for the PDO, whether a student has worked with us or not. It doesn't matter, as long as you're going to the US and as long as you have an I-20, you're more than welcome to come to the PDO. We have different games that we do there, and like a Q&A session where we give our prizes, as well as we do the main purpose is that different citizens of Punjab, because I'm in Lahore, in the Lahore office, so we invite students from all over Punjab. Last year we had somebody come from Bahawalpur as well. So the purpose is that when people from different cities are coming, you never know that that you and another person that you have never met before, you guys start talking at the PDO, and then you're going to the same university, or maybe even the same city, not the same university. So it's our way of making sure that you have some sort of a support system in the US, that you're not alone. In case that you're going if in case that you're going alone, it's always nice to know that somebody has your back. So that's essentially the main purpose of a PDO. And of course, we have a lot of fun while we're at the PDO as well, and getting free gifts is always nice. Okay. Moving forward, here's the link to our website where you can register for our free advising services, usefpakistan.org/advising/register. And that's our email, lhradvisors@usefpakistan.org. Please feel free to email us as well as register on that link as shown on your screen. Each Friday we send out an email regarding all the events that are happening in all 3 cities, because since we've moved virtually online, you'll know everything that's going on that you can view for free. Yeah, so that brings today's session on 5 steps to an end. I'm just going to go over the Q&A section in our Zoom as well as Facebook, and we'll take a few questions, and then we'll end the session. So Mr. Shariar Tariq has asked, do state colleges give full financial aid, for example, Colorado State University? Usually state universities give very few dollar amount aid to international students, but I would recommend that you email the rep at Colorado State University and ask them, and I'm sure their information would also be available on their website as to how much aid that they're giving. Personally, I would still say that email the rep that they have at Colorado State University. I'm just reading through all the questions. Is the ratio of funding scholarships same for national and international students in the US, both public and private universities? Question asked by Jamila Hassan. Ooh, sorry. international students in the US, both are not. So the thing is that if you're a national, if you're an American citizen, the rate would be for a public university you would get an in-state tuition rate. But even for that, you would have to be a resident of that particular state prior to studying there for 1 year. Only then would you get the in-state tuition fee. For example, I had friends in New Jersey, but they came to Penn State to study. They were given the out-of-state tuition rate, which was actually the same as the international student rate. So that's something that if you are a U.S. citizen, Jamila, this is something that you should be wary of. That you would have to register as a resident of the particular state, and then after 1 year, if you enroll in the university, that is only when you would be eligible for institution. But sometimes whether you're applying for a master's or a bachelor's program, this is some general information that everybody should know, is that you could always write to the committee and ask them for institution. There's no harm in asking; they might just approve it. Because everybody understands that international rates or out-of-state tuition is quite expensive. So there's no harm in asking the university whether they would be willing to give you in-state tuition numbers or not. Can you describe what community colleges are? Community colleges, as I mentioned earlier at the start of the presentation, the purpose of going to community college is that A, they're a lot cheaper, and B is that the classroom sizes are actually extremely small because community colleges are very, very small, 1 to 6, or sometimes even 1 to 2, 1 to 3 ratio, meaning 3 students to 1 teacher ratio is also present at community colleges. Essentially, that's the basic difference, as well as obviously the structure.
So, I may add, Aman.
Yeah.
Also, they offer associate degrees similar to BA.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, they only offer associate degrees, community colleges. Yeah. If you, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to go to through the community college route, what you need to do is you need to have the 2+2 program, because that will ensure that you're going to have somewhere to go in your 3rd year, that you're not just going to get a associate's degree and then end up with nothing else. But because an associate's degree is not a bachelor's degree, it's only 2 years of undergrad. You need 4 years to have a proper bachelor's degree, a full-fledged bachelor's degree. That's something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. Why do you recommend early decision but not early action? It's in the same cycle. Shouldn't the aid that they give out be proportional to years and years? Yeah, it is. That's what I actually said. Early decisions and early actions should be the primary decision processes that a student needs to be going through. The regular decision, of course, go through the regular decision as well. In case you have exhausted all your EAs, but in no way did I say that you should not apply for early action. Definitely apply for early action, because you can only make one early decision for your undergrad. So definitely the rest of them should definitely be early actions, and then maybe some regular decisions. That was an anonymous question. Can we get admission in spring 2021 on the one that starts in January? Yeah, of course you can get admissions in spring 2021. In fact, yesterday I held a session with Midway University. They're actually still taking in students for fall 2020. So if you want to go in like the next 3-4 months, and if your application is good enough, you never know, they might just give you an admission. But yes, universities are giving, they definitely, that's called, so essentially if you want to go in spring 2021, the normal decision cycle usually is December, Jan, Feb, March for undergrad. But what you're referring to would be the rolling admissions. So if you want to go in spring, that's called a rolling admission. So each semester, be it spring, fall, or summer, new students keep rolling in. So that's a rolling basis admission cycle. Hope that answered your question. There's a question which says, any idea when the embassies will open for visas?
If I can answer that, essentially embassies and consulates have the SOP that until unless things get better, they will not open. But As soon as we get into the office, we are thinking of doing an information session online. Aman and I, we were discussing that a few days ago. So as of now, we are not really sure of any information, but uh, things need to get better. The numbers need to get better. So for this time, it's a little indefinite. Um, but I hope as soon as we get access to our offices, we can do some sort of a session, information session for the students as well. Um, so I regret to inform you at this point in time, it's even we don't know.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sumaya. Tariq is asking, can we see the video again? Yes, you can. Please visit our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/edusa Pakistan. Can we get 2 types of scholarships at the same time? So the university actually decides what kind of financial aid packages that they will be making for you. Essentially, they do a combination of need-based and merit-based aid to give you whatever amount of aid that they're willing to give you. But that's something that's decided on their part. That's something that we can't decide on behalf of them, of course. Does Ivy League give schools full scholarship? Yeah, a lot of scholarships that the Ivy League universities give. If you go to each university's profile on College Board, you'll see that they give a lot of aid in the millions, tens of millions of dollars. Yes, they do.
Absolutely, and a lot of Ivy Leagues are also going online for the fall term.
Yeah.
I know at least 3 schools at Harvard, I believe, Divinity, Design, and Education, they've definitely gone completely online. And Aman, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of them are going hybrid with a mix of online and classroom education, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So overall, the enrollment has really increased while the tuition cost has decreased, but the enrollment of students has really increased over time, especially in this post-COVID era.
Yeah. So do you have, so one thing that I actually wanted to point out is that Ivy Leagues are obviously great institutions to go to. They have centuries worth of traditions and they're excellent at whatever they do. But bear one thing in mind is that it's always better to be a good student at an average university than a bad student at a great university. Like you don't want to pass out from, I don't know, Yale or Harvard with a 2.0 when you can actually pass out with a 3.5 or a 3 point whatever 8 from a, I don't know, like a smaller liberal arts school. So bear that in mind. Let the college choose you instead of you choosing the college, essentially. Do you at USCF provide advising services only for undergrad students or to assist in PhD level as well? Yes, we assist in undergrad, masters, and PhD. We help everybody. Yeah. So please email us with any questions that you might have. What is the difference between state, public, federal university? So Vakar Salim, your question that you asked, what is the difference between state, public, and federal university? There's no such thing. Our private university is mostly cheaper than all 3 of them. So private universities are actually the most expensive amongst the 2, which is public or state, public or private universities. But the difference I've already explained earlier in the presentation is that private universities give a lot of aid versus state universities do not. Okay. When will SAT classes start? So actually, I'm in the middle of scheduling them. I think hopefully by next week, I will be sending out an email to everybody. I just want to make sure, can you guys see my presentation still? Right? Maya, can you see my presentation?
I can.
Yeah, okay, so then everybody can. So what you guys can do is you can just go here at on the link that I provided, the uscfpakistan.org/registering advising/register. Just go there and register, and you'll receive an email once we have our SAT classes scheduled, and then you'll know it's a 6-week long course that we'll be giving, but they're going to be online, of course. Okay, can we apply using SuperScore? Yes, of course you can apply using a SuperScore. super score, which means that you say, for example, you've given the SAT once and you had a 1400, and then the second time you had a 1600. But in the first one, okay, let's go with 1450. So in the first one, you had a I don't know, like a 600 on your math and a I don't know, a 700 on your math and a 700 on your English on the test. But then the second time you have a 700, an 800 on your English and 700 on your math. So what you can do is you can use your super score and use the top score of your math, which would be 800, and then use the other SAT scores 700. So that's something that you can do. Yes, you can super score it. One good score in English and one seating, and then a good score in math in another. Yes, you can certainly do that. That's not a problem. Okay, so that answers all the questions on my feed. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Sumaya, for being a part of the session.
Thank you, Aman.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hope everybody stays safe. Please email us. Please register with us for any further information. Just email us. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.